Chris Rock also would have gotten a penalty to his Thacko because it was a surprise attack. It's right here in the book.
I'm trying to make us sound hard. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Tony, how's your week, man?
It was pretty good. This is my favorite time of the year, James. It is early spring, which means I get to get the garden going. Mushrooms are popping up, so I get to go mushroom hunting. I love being outdoors. I love doing that kind of stuff. It's an amazing time. You get to come out of the winter. This is when I really come out of the winter hibernation. I start to drop that 20 pounds that I always gain whenever it's cold and nasty outside.
So basically, you're an old man who likes to garden at this point.
Yes. Speaking of which, just a little FYI for the kids out there. I did see that the Taliban has officially banned poppy cultivation. So kids, buy your heroin now because supplies will be running short here pretty soon. Just in case, too, little gardening information right here. Book's been available since the 70s. Go buy it. You don't have to buy from the Taliban. Make your own heroin.
I say we invade.
Yeah, probably. We just need to invade.
Back to work.
I had a buddy. He was an electrician at a place where I worked maintenance at. And he actually was an MP that guarded a poppy field in Afghanistan. And he told me about it. And I mean, the first question I asked was did you ever get to do any? He's like, no, he's like, they drug tested us every week.
Really?
It was yeah, they were, if you worked at the poppy fields, they were, I guess, particularly stringent with the drug testing. I was like, oh man, that sucks. Which he would not be the kind to, do it.
Poppy.
Yeah, he was pretty straight-laced. Very cool guy. I like the shit out of him. He was my buddy.
Talk about cognitive dissonance. What are we really doing over there?
Yeah, I mean, that's how you get them guys to like you. You gotta, secure their funding.
Their number one export.
Yeah.
When I was on vacation last year out here in the woods in Kentucky, there was Amanita muscarius popping up everywhere. Speaking of mushrooms.
Really?
I've never tried them. I'm too scared. But there's people that swear by them. It's like microdosing, obviously. They do contain a benzo.
Yeah, I've watched a few things
that are poisonous, but
yeah, you hear. Well, I've listened to Rogan talk. I don't think he had done them at that point, but he had talked about other people that had done them, and people would have these wild, crazy trips, and then he heard from some people that had actually tried them, and apparently it's a pretty mild high. It's not, I don't think, nearly as psychedelic as your
psilocybin. They have muscimol, which is they have so many different compounds in them, but there's a point at which it becomes toxic, and you want to stay below that. Unfortunately, all the super psychedelic effects are going to be above that point. And even in low doses, people get nausea pretty bad on it. So probably wouldn't be an issue for me. I have iron stomach, but I don't want to. Yeah. It doesn't seem worth it just for a weak ass benzo. You know what I mean?
Yeah, just get benzos.
Yeah, all right. Just get lorazepam if you want to sleep good.
They're everywhere. You can get them. Order them from Mexico like Americans.
This was this morning. This was cool. Man in Germany gets 90 COVID-19 shots to sell forged passports. So he would just keep getting the vaccine over and over and over. That way he could get more of these passports to sell to anti-vaxxers.
Capitalism, baby. I love it.
What a G, dude.
That should also go to prove some points to these. He's doing double work. Not only is he's making money off the rubes, but he's also proving that you can get 90-something vaccinations and not have any ill health effects. I'm assuming he's fine. I'm assuming after, if there was going to be some negative health consequences, repercussions of taking that many, after 10 or so, he would start noticing.
Oh, yeah.
But,
he's not going to get sick forever, dude. He's going to be invincible.
Yeah. So, hey, dude, publish your findings, publish what happened to you, and give it to the people so that they can not pay attention to it. Actually, it just come out.
Why didn't somebody think of this before? This is brilliant.
It really is. Yeah, and it's a scam that's targeting the most naive.
The dumbest
the dumb
portion of
fucks.
the anti-government people.
Yeah. I don't know though. I mean, he went through with it. Good on him. That's awesome.
Heck yeah.
I wish I would have thought of something like that.
They haven't released his name yet, but he's going to be a hero.
Yeah, I just seen there was a big study come out showing that in the past week, showing that ivermectin pretty conclusively has no effect whatsoever on preventing or treating COVID infections.
Shocker.
So, and this was a video, YouTube video I was watching. They were talking about this is like the biggest study to date, international study, and they were juxtaposing this with a bunch of clips of Brett Weinstein and Joe Rogan, and Brett Weinstein talking about how as a prophylactic it has almost 100% efficacy, and then they play the Curb Your Enthusiasm. It'd be Brett Weinstein says something, they play the Curb Your Enthusiasm music.
I never watched the show. I don't get the reference.
Yeah, well, you've probably heard it before. Anyways.
Yeah, we had talked about the whole thing on the show before, like the effectiveness of ivermectin, and there were studies that were showing some effectiveness in treating the symptoms, but those studies were retracted shortly after the podcast. Two of them were retracted. Big Pharma reached their tentacles into the industry and disappeared 2 studies.
Yeah, keeping us away from the truth as usual, going back and changing the medical literature so that they can sell their vaccine.
Speaking of tentacles,
watching hentai.
Close.
Oh, that's Nick Fuentes.
Yeah,
right.
Nick Fuentes on the Great Slappening.
I just found out about this guy like a month ago.
Oh, really?
This is a 53-year-old man. This is not an 18-year-old guy. He's not 25. He's a 53-year-old man. And I don't really care so much about, I guess he's in an open marriage, so his wife is sleeping with other guys, and it's been that way for a long time. I don't know. I don't follow all the drama. That's really neither here nor there.
See, it seems pretty reasonable so far, right?
Yeah, I'm with him 100%.
Yeah.
I'm guessing this is where the clip ends.
No, not so much.
He saw his wife was upset, and then he punched Chris Rock. I'm not really interested in that aspect of it. I'm interested in the fact that I feel as though black people in America are emboldened, and they think that they can get away with anything. And I think that goes from the lowest levels, where you have, in a city like Chicago, 15 to 24-year-old black men stealing cars, robbing stores in broad daylight, going to a store, take a bunch of merchandise and walk right out, all the way up to the biggest, richest, most famous people like Will Smith, who thinks, yeah, I can just walk up to the stage and punch a guy. Now, is he mentally unstable? Is there something else going on, perhaps? But there is this culture that we know has been cultivated where blacks have been absolutely emboldened. And the message that has been promulgated by the elite institutions, and which everybody seems to accept, is that there are no consequences for black people's actions.
I can't. I have
except
trouble.
Except for their disproportionate representation in the prison population, there are no consequences.
The idea that there's no black people have it easy when it comes to law enforcement.
None. No consequences.
It's hard for. I feel like he's doing an act, but this is how he always is. He's always like this. Everything I've seen him in, he's like this. It's almost like an act, but I don't know, man.
Yeah, that really feels like an act. I don't believe that.
But if you listen to all his interviews and shit, this is just how he is, dude. He's like, it's like he's doing some like 80s comedian or something, but that's just his personality.
He's Mexican Milo Yiannopoulos. I don't know if he's Mexican or not. I'm just going off the name, but yeah, I think Milo, he was himself, but he put on an act of being an over-the-top version of himself.
Sure, but I don't think Fuentes is doing that.
You don't think he's doing that?
No.
I mean, because that's kind of like an old game. You know, it was Hunter S. Thompson. Hunter S. Thompson was himself, but he was also the caricature of himself, where he just pushed everything further.
I can see your point, but but you would expect to see like the cracks. You would at some point you would expect to see him speak normally, but he doesn't. He's just always this idiotic. I don't know.
Like I said, I just found out about him like a month ago. I've barely seen anything of him, so this is all I mean, of the clips I have seen, this is what it all looks like to me. So maybe it is him. Maybe this is just
the problem is black people get away with everything around here.
Yeah.
Tell that to George Floyd, buddy.
Yeah. Yeah. We did it just I know this is old news at this point, but we didn't get to talk about Slapgate.
Oh, we're going to right now. This was open to
Oh,
it.
good.
Yeah.
Thank God.
Nobody's covered it yet, so
everybody covered.
Look,
I woke up. See, it was last Sunday, so it was when we were doing this, right? It was when we were doing this, right? Space, right? That's how you speak, Tony. It was during the podcast, so that's. I don't know. I wouldn't have been paying attention anyways, but.
Well, it was. We have some unique perspective on it. We could add to the conversation, which is what I want to do here. So we don't need to see it. We've seen it a million times, but just questions for you here. Obviously, they're calling this a slap, but in my mind, that's not a slap. That was an open-handed strike. A slap is done to embarrass somebody. It's not done to actually strike somebody. That was a strike. He could have knocked Chris Rock out with that strike. That was from the hip, fully cocked, full rotation of the body. That was not what I would consider a slap at all. First of all.
No, I think it was an exaggerated slap. It was a slap that he put a lot into.
We're gonna have to watch it.
It looked like he put a lot more into it.
He slapped the shit out of him.
Here's the thing. If I slap somebody, if I put my hips into it and turn my body like that and slap somebody, especially Chris Rock. Chris Rock is not a big guy. You know, he's old. He's getting kind of frail. I would have fucking knocked him to the ground.
Well,
Will Smith is a big dude. He's well built. Will Smith knows how to hit, man. Like, he trained for when he played Ali, the character of Ali. If he wanted to hurt Chris, he could have put him on the ground, even with an open-handed slap.
Well, there's
There's
two things you're missing here. You're missing where your hand strikes the face is important, right? And also where on the face you hit. This is, this can be seen in all those slap videos. If you just hit with the fingers, you're not going to knock him out or knock him down. There's no mass behind it.
Yeah, so I guess would Will Smith have misjudged his distance? I don't think he would have. I think Will Smith knows how to hit if he wants to hit. And he was not hitting. I think he was putting on a show for his cucking wife so that he could keep her from banging some more of his son's friends.
Do you think it was staged? Is that what you're
No,
implying?
I don't think it. No. I think he felt obligated to do it. He went up there and slapped him hard, but he exaggerated the movement so that he appeared to be hitting him harder than he was.
You can't fake the speed at which he threw the strike. What are you saying that he did? Are you saying he landed with the fingers intentionally?
Perhaps, yeah.
Okay, I could see that.
Or pulled back a little bit at, like wound up.
He was pissed, dude. I don't know.
He didn't follow through. I guess that would be what I'm saying. He slapped and kind of stopped the force at impact instead of following through. If he'd have followed through, Chris Rock was barely fazed by that. I've had people slap me and it rung my ears. Like, I've seen stars in my eyes before from a slap, open-handed slap.
It took Chris Rock a while to regain his composure. And he has dark skin. You're not going to see the mark there. I think he hit him pretty fucking hard, dude. I think Chris Rock is a G. It just took it.
Chris Rock is definitely a G. I love Chris Rock, and I am on Team Rock in this situation. Having said that, do we need to watch the video?
No, I don't think so.
Okay.
One more question here. In my mind, this was a surprise attack, which I would consider dishonorable. If he wanted to fight the man, he should have said, all right, we're about to fight, square up. That's what we say down here in the South. We say square up or whatever,
Yeah. Chris Rock also would have gotten a penalty to his thaco because it was a surprise attack. It's right here in the book.
I'm trying to make us sound hard, and you're talking about thaco.
Yeah, also,
that's a bitch move, right? That's a bitch move.
It's definitely a bitch. I don't know. I don't know. The walking up and slapping him doesn't bother me as much as the reason why he did it. I guess that's my problem.
Really? I thought the reasoning was fine, but I think the surprise, the cheap shot, I have a big problem with. Chris Rock did not expect that whatsoever on the red carpet at the fucking Oscars, dude.
No, yeah, okay, yeah. So he definitely wasn't expecting it, but it wasn't a sucker punch. It was. I guess you
disagree.
were right.
I think it was a sucker punch.
I don't know. I would have had to have seen what Chris seen. Like, what I would have had to, if somebody's walking towards me and I can see a grim determination in their eyes, I'm going to start squaring up, put my hands up. Hey, buddy, don't
Yeah, true.
Kind of get into a guard position a
at the
little bit.
Oscars, though, that the only reason at the Oscars, there's no way Chris Rock. I'm sure he felt the energy, but
if somebody gets within 5 feet of me, I sweep their leg just as a matter of principle.
I know, but you're in my bubble. You better back up.
But also, I noticed a lot of people getting upset about, Chris Rock should press charges and, this was assault. Something should have been done. Somebody should have been arrested. I think minor acts of violence should be much more tolerated in society. People,
where do you draw the line? That's the problem.
that is the problem, where you draw the line. I don't draw it here. I think this is fine. This is something. Chris is a big boy. He can handle himself. Whether he wants to do that through the legal route or whatever. But
I have to disagree with you, man.
Yeah,
I don't think it was a slap. I think it was a strike. A slap is meant to embarrass a person, not to injure them. I've done this. I've slapped people because they were being an ass, but I didn't want to beat them up. What if it's an old grandma? You can't say it's okay to slap people because then you slap grandma and she breaks her neck.
It's okay for a man to slap another man, or a drunk woman, or a loud kid.
I know, but then I want accelerometers to make sure they're not slapping too hard, because you can really do a lot of damage with a palm strike, man.
Bas Rutten was famous for his palm strikes. That's like what he would do when he fought. He would tear people up with them. I think we need to ask Bas Rutten, was it a strike or was it a slap? He's the only one that I would trust unequivocally to settle this matter, I'd say.
Bas Rutten?
Bas Rutten. So, okay. Bas Rutten, I know you love the podcast. Comment down below, strike or slap. Let us know.
All right. The other big news this week, Chris Hedges canceled, obviously, the legend himself. Just going to open with a little Hedges clip here to give us some flavor to the conversation. This is one of the most iconic figures of the early internet. He's right up there with Chomsky, man, in terms of his influence.
Comrades lose their identities in wartime for the collective rush of a common cause, a common purpose. In comradeship, life is ecstatic and corporate, as opposed to friendship, where life is singular and individual. In comradeship, Gray reminds us, there are no demands on the self. This is part of its appeal, and one of the reasons we miss it and seek to recreate it. In wartime, when we feel threatened, we no longer face death alone, but as a group, and this makes death easier to bear. We ennoble self-sacrifice for the other, for the comrade. In short, we begin to worship death, and this is what the god of war demands from us.
So iconic, dude. Gosh. Just the voice of Hedges. I love it. He's more iconic than Parenti, probably.
Oh, for sure.
You think?
Yeah, I mean, I haven't seen anything from Parenti in 15 years.
Yeah, I don't know what happened to him, man.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Hedges is still relevant today. He's still showing up on different shows, writing books, publishing articles, giving his thoughts on the news of the day, and getting canceled, as it turns out.
Yep. The great cancellation got Chris Hedges, man. They came for Rogan. I said nothing. They came for Chappelle. Still, I said nothing.
They came for J.K. Rowling, who was there, and now Chris Hedges.
Not Chris Hedges. They've gone too far. So in this clip, this is from War is a Force That Gives Us Meaning. This was his first big book tour that I can remember. Maybe there was another one prior, but this was his first one after the NYT fiasco. So in this clip, he's talking about, obviously, war, how war brings us meaning, and comradeship is one way that it does that. He's talking about how at wartime, we get this sense of comradeship that we're missing from society these days. We're isolated, we're atomized, as they call it, and there's something in us that comes out during war times that we crave, is his argument here. Yeah,
for sure. I mean, it's kind of this indelible part of human nature, and all too often that comradeship can be kind of co-opted by
football.
Football. I was going to say different political purposes. You can.
Oh, you mean like nationalism?
Nationalism, yes.
Well, he's making a materialist argument here. So this is not, he's arguing against basically the whole great man theory of war. He's claiming that this is brought about by material conditions, obviously. sort of in the vein of materialism, not dialectical materialism like Marx would talk about, but in the same school of thought here. Very flowery language, though. I love the voice too, man.
Mm-hmm. He's certainly he's a fantastic speaker. You know, he has his father was a preacher. I want to say a Southern Baptist preacher, and so I think he picked up a lot of the oratory skills from being around his father. And you know, he reminds me a lot of I would say like the black pastor activists. You know, the
Cornel West.
That's who I was thinking of. Killer Mike. You know,
I believe
along those lines.
If I remember correctly, Hedges did go to seminary for a period.
Yeah, I don't know if he did or not. I know his father actually had quite a few run-ins with the establishment of his church for teaching to gay people and women's issues. Basically, I guess taking the kind of progressive stands at the time against the church hierarchy.
Interesting. That makes sense. It gives some context to Hedges' position on things. So he was a war correspondent for the New York Times for over a decade, and he won the Pulitzer in 2002 for covering Al-Qaeda after 9/11. He appeared on Democracy Now! Many years ago. I'm not sure if you remember this, but he was booed at Rockford College in Rockford, Illinois, when he showed up for a graduation ceremony to give a send-off speech, and he launches into this anti-war speech during the invasion. They started booing him. They unplugged his mic several times. And eventually, I think he did finish the speech. I'm not sure if he cut it short, but he eventually did finish it. And then the president of the college comes out and like apologizes to everybody. But I'm of two minds on this, because if you listen to the speech, on the one hand, these people are booing because they're American patriots and they want to kill brown people, right? But on the other hand, you got Chris Hedges going to a fucking graduation ceremony, trying to, doing a commencement, trying to celebrate, and he's doing the Chris Hedges thing where he's like, this is the worst time to be alive. Everything's gone to shit. We're looming closer to Armageddon. And I can understand a little anger there on, they're expecting some sort of jovial speech by this New York Times journalist. They got Chris Hedges. Probably not what they signed up for.
I don't know. It's an important message to get out.
It is, dude. Very important. I think he definitely did the right thing, for sure. I can actually play a little bit of this here. It's really bad video quality, but...
War is a fine diversion. War, for those who enter into combat, has a dark beauty, filled with the monstrous and the grotesque.
There's
the Bible calls it the lust of
background.
the eye.
The monstrous and the grotesque.
Against it. War gives us a distorted sense of self. It gives us meaning.
Can I say a few words?
Once in war, when I finish, the conflict obliterates the past and the future. All is one heady, intoxicating present. You feel every heartbeat in war. Colors are brighter. Your mind races ahead of it.
At this point, Chris Hedges gives...
Yeah, so Amy interrupts here because they unplug his mic right there. He gets it turned back on later and gives some more of the speech, but and he comments here about how the audience is much, much louder than you can hear on this recording because he has the mic, obviously. Yeah. So, and you can still hear him screaming like, go home, all this type of stuff, saying bad stuff to him. To Chris Hedges. What are they thinking, dude? If Chris Hedges came to my college to give a speech, I'd be overjoyed.
I mean, to be fair, how many of those people knew who Chris Hedges was at the time? He's never been a real big, prominent German journalist.
I just think that at the time, there was not too many people speaking out against the war.
Oh, for sure. For sure. I mean, you remember that time period, post 2001, the nation was really galvanized, and that lasted for quite a while up into the Iraq War in 2003. Probably 2004, 2005 is when you could finally, things kind of got back to normal, and that patriotism and nationalistic fervor started to die down. I actually haven't heard that though. I'm 100% Hedges, Team Hedges over here.
The war in Afghanistan passed with 98 yeses and 2 noes in the Senate.
Yeah.
That reflected the opinion at the time, the public consensus, basically.
Yeah.
God, Americans must be terrifying to the rest of the world.
Oh yeah, yeah. If it didn't even have to be one of your people, because of course the hijackers weren't Afghans.
they were Saudis.
They were Saudis. Yeah. So
every brown person in the world is just like,
watch out,
fuck.
y'all, watch out.
After this Rockford College thing, he resigned from the New York Times because he was censored by the Times. They reprimanded him for this speech, and then he went to work for Truth Dig and some other places as a freelancer. He traveled through the Middle East and Latin America, he covered basically every war for, from the late 80s on. Eventually he had to give it up because he said he has PTSD now. He tells stories about having buddies die in his arms and shit.
I can imagine.
And currently his most recent project, he's been teaching in U.S. prisons. So yeah, Chris Hedges, absolute legend.
For sure.
I don't see Chomsky teaching any fucking prisons. Maybe he has, I don't know.
He probably has. So yeah, YouTube basically removed his entire archive of shows on contact from their library, basically having to do with his affiliation with Russian news and RT. And
they didn't delete his channel. They deleted all of his On Contact episodes, right?
Yeah, removes the entire archive of the show On Contact from YouTube because of its association because it was funded by RT America and RT International. According to the journalist, social media platform took arbitrary action against him because it believed his show promoted pro-Russian content since it was aired on RT, which is an English language news network funded by the Kremlin and based out of Moscow.
Is that the whole statement? Have they said it was a mistake? They're going to put it back?
No. It was no. This is what has happened. This is their position on it, that it is Russian propaganda. It has been removed. Now, of that, Chris has pointed out, as have others, that much of the content on Contact has nothing to do with Russia, nothing to do with, certainly with Ukraine, any of this conflict. This is stuff dating back years. Most of it has to do with, most of it is just domestic politics stuff. So he's got interviews with Susan Sontag, Cornel West, the BDS movement in Israel.
Yeah, he's got Chomsky on there. He's got
Chomsky, yeah.
Abby Martin, people like that.
Abby Martin, Slavoj Žižek, I can't ever say his name, Slavoj Žižek.
Here's his statement on it. Let's play a statement on it first.
Okay.
What would you say to critics that say RT America, RT, was an outlet for Russian state propaganda, which is why it was targeted for removal by YouTube?
Well, to a certain extent, that's probably true. But are we better off not hearing what Russia has to say, not understanding why they think the way they do? I was a foreign correspondent for 20 years. My job was to be culturally, linguistically, historically, religiously literate, to step into the shoes of a Syrian or an Iraqi or a Palestinian. And of course, I spent 6 years in Latin America and then later in Yugoslavia, and explain how the world looked from their vantage point, why they felt the way they did. And oftentimes, the grievances they have are very legitimate. I certainly think that Putin's complaints about the expansion of NATO have a great deal of credibility. It's just a historical fact that the leaders of the West lied to Gorbachev, lied to Yeltsin, and lied to Putin. That's just historically true.
So this is the point Chomsky made on this. He basically said, sure, we know it's Russian state media, but that's no excuse to cancel it, right?
Yeah, for sure. I don't know. I mean, this kind of goes hand in hand actually with what we were talking about earlier about this the fervor that gets built up, at the time, the fervor that got built up around the Iraq or the Afghan war and the Iraq war, and his kind of being canceled for the same reasons then, this overreaction, this overcorrection to a perceived threat. At the time back then, anybody that was against meting out justice to those evil Afghanis that attacked us on 9/11 was somebody that became a kind of persona non grata in the U.S. and had to be taken out of the public discourse. And that's part of what's happening now, certainly with the Russia-Ukraine thing. I used to watch RT. RT does a lot of great work. I haven't watched them in a few years, to be fair, but there's some excellent journalism done on there. I'm sure that anything having to do with Russia is a little sus, but certainly as far as RT America goes, you had like Abby Martin on there. She was great. She did a lot of excellent work. Things having to do with any coverage having to do with domestic issues or even foreign issues in most other countries was excellent journalism as far as I'm concerned. But we have this proclivity in the U.S. to take people out of the public discourse, and it's just another example of it. I think it's kind of runs hand in hand. So when I heard about this, I was thinking about you, and I was thinking about some of the statements you made in reference to Rogan at the time, or a month or so ago, when we talked about Rogan potentially getting canceled. And my take was that you were kind of dismissive of it because you didn't feel like, well, he's not really getting canceled. He still has a platform. He still has a voice. He can get this out. And so I wanted to ask you how you feel about the Hedges incident. Kind of in light and looking at it through the same prism as the Rogan incident or the Chappelle incident, for example. Chris Hedges is not going to lose his platform. He's very wealthy. He's going to be fine. And people are still going to listen to him, whenever he says something. So is this something we should worry about? Him having a couple shows taken off YouTube?
Well, I think the Chappelle comparison doesn't work because Chappelle didn't lose anything. He just faced some minor criticism. Rogan had some of his videos, some of his old podcasts deleted off of Spotify, so that's maybe comparable here. I think the difference, though, is Rogan was spreading misinformation. Of course, the episodes they took down weren't really related to that, though, so I guess that argument doesn't apply.
Yeah, so even I always get wary when we start judging these things based on our subjective analysis of the quality of the information being put out there. I would probably agree with you in most instances on how we would analyze the quality of the information. I think I agree with you on a lot of things, but our subjective analysis of it still is our subjective analysis, and it just seems to be a really a really slippery slope to start going down.
So you're bringing up the age-old argument that about censorship in general, which is free speech absolutism. This is Chomsky's position. This is Hedges' position. I'm more ambivalent on it. I could be pushed either way on this. I really have two minds about it. On the one hand, I get the argument. The argument that Chomsky makes is that if you let censorship happen, it's going to happen to us. This is probably what's going on here with Chris Hedges, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. At the same time, I get so fucking pissed at people like Tucker Carlson. He's number one on cable news. Ben Shapiro's show, number one on Facebook. Is that okay? I mean, they're lying constantly. Chris Hedges isn't lying. Chris Hedges just has an unpopular opinion. There seems to be a fundamental difference between somebody spreading factual information that you disagree with and somebody spreading false information. There seems to be a difference there. I could be swayed on this point, though. Like I said, I'm the whole free speech absolutism thing. It's like, do you let, like, for example, Germany has laws against Nazism. Yeah. Should we repeal those laws? Is that a good idea?
I have no problem in theory with, obviously we keep the unpopular opinions and we get rid of the untrue opinions. But I think the problem, and this is what you were just saying, Chomsky says, is like functionally, how does that work?
Right.
Who sits there, who goes through and is going to analyze these different statements and pick which one and what criteria do they use? If it were you sitting in a room, I would trust you for the most part to do that, but it's not. It's going to be, some appointed people. So I think, somebody appointed by some bureaucrat. So just as a matter of pragmatism, it's almost kind of, I feel like it's kind of necessary that everybody's voice gets heard, whether they're Brett Weinstein telling people that ivermectin is 100% effective as a prophylactic, or Chris Hedges railing against U.S. imperialism. It's the only way for it to function is just to have it all out there.
But the problem is the deck is stacked against the truth. The capital interests are aligned in their messaging, and they have so much power because of the way the system is set up. And we could change the system, that'd be ideal, and then I would be on board with you. Your speech is equivalent to how much wealth you have behind that speech, and you have such a larger megaphone.
Yeah. Like you said, though, the decibel level of your speech is directly correlated with the amount of money you have behind you. And once we start going down that road where misinformation starts getting obviously, and it's not really being censored. This isn't a government stepping in and saying this can't be said. This person's going to face some sort of consequences for saying X, Y, or Z. These are companies making a business choice to not give platform to certain people. My fear, I think, and I'm sure your fear too, is like if we start going down that road, that disproportionate level of influence could just be exacerbated. It might not get leveled off by curbing certain speech. It could just be exacerbated. And, now we have oil companies who have infinite wealth, getting their speech heard a little bit more and maybe suppressing some of the claims of climate activists. And this hasn't been wholly demonstrated that temperature is rising by X degrees. So we're going to call this misinformation, and we're just going to use these controls that are already in place to dampen this speech.
It sounds like we agree that the people who shouldn't be deciding this stuff are the CEOs of these corporations, right?
Yes, 100%.
So Hedges also argues, I'm not sure if he explicitly argues this or just implies it, I'm not sure, but RT and all this content is not anti-American, but anti-American imperialism. All these guests you have on here, they're all left-wingers, and did this play into YouTube's decision to pull all this stuff down, is the question. Right? There's two things here that benefit YouTube. For one, they benefit from the posturing of anti-Russian sentiment in the country. They're benefiting that way, cashing in on people's outrage over the invasion. And for two, they're able to take down a bunch of left-wing shit.
I don't buy into the kind of concerted right-wing efforts or right-wing intentionality behind the big tech platforms as much as you do. Certainly over issues like this. Now, if it were issues that more directly affected their business model, I might get on board with it. But I don't think, I imagine that the people at YouTube and YouTube in general doesn't care much about if Chris Hedges talks to Abby Martin and she, or the BDS, if you have a BDS activist on there, pointing out Israeli war crimes. I don't think that they would care about that.
I think you underestimate, for one, the power of the Israelis in the United States corporate system. I think they're pretty entrenched there. We already know that from all the laws. We have anti-BDS laws all across the country. For one. For two, it's not, this could have came down from the frickin' board. You're telling me that the board of directors of Google isn't interested in capital interests, promoting their ideology or suppressing, for example, union organizing? I'd be very surprised if that were true.
There's not the clear connection that I could see with like big retailers like Walmart or the oil industry. It's a lot more apparent, the connection between their interests and their lobbying. And, of course, a lot of these people also kind of personalities in and of themselves. So we know that they, donate to certain right-wing causes. Whereas Google, maybe it is posturing. It's been effective, I would say, because I certainly view them this way as slightly leaning left, if not, at the very least, kind of apolitical.
Left by what standards?
Well, I don't know. These are just kind of my prejudices about them. But I see a lot of these tech people as being people our age. They live in San Francisco, for God's sake.
Elon Musk is our age.
They've got to be fucking hippies.
Definitely outrageous. Don't fuck with legends. Here is Chris Hedges schooling Christopher Hitchens. Because he's a boss.
Oh, I remember watching this debate.
Really?
Yeah, I liked Chris Hedges up until this one. Hitch or die, baby. It's my boy.
Hitch had some questionable positions at times.
It's always, in every case, devoted to the subjugation of women. The Orthodox Jew has to begin the daily prayer. Thank God for not making me a woman or a goy. That's how much they think of women. Somebody has to buy retail, as was once said of the Goyish. Everybody knows what Islam says and mandates for women. Everybody knows also what St. Paul said about women. Everybody knows, even those who, probably there's some here who think maybe I have a Buddhist option here. has to notice that even Buddha is born from a slit in his mother's side. Anything but the filth and disgust of having to contemplate the female reproductive system. What could be more obviously man-made than this, and made in a barbaric period, even of the history of the male sex? It's plain as could be. The terror of menstrual blood, for example, the horror of it, the feeling of uncleanliness that attaches to everything female, that's before you start with every other manifestation of sexuality. Filthy, guilt-ridden, masochistic, horrible. Our emancipation from this is the condition of our emancipation under, it seems to me, any terms at all. Time is short for us to find this out.
Well, that gets to the notion that somehow, if you abolish religion, which has been part of every human society since human society has been recorded, these dark impulses are somehow going to vanish. If torturers, killers, sadists, and tyrants don't wrap themselves in the cloak of religion, they'll wrap themselves in the cloak of something else. Fascism, communism. I mean, these are, and I think as you correctly pointed out, bear many similarities to the kinds of ideological forms that we see within repressive religious institutions. The problem is not religion. The problem is the capacity we all have for evil, the capacity we all have for atrocity. And as long as we externalize evil, and that's of course what religious fundamentalists do, we can't guard against the ability and the seductiveness that all of us carry within ourselves.
Yeah, you ever want to see Hitchens getting handled? There he goes, right there, getting handled.
Oh, negative. So I would argue that, but I don't think that's what we're talking about. But the point is, not that these bad impulses would go away, but they would lose some of their steam. It's one thing if you're doing something for nationalistic reasons or personal reasons, but that thing takes on a whole new level of importance if you're doing it because the creator of the universe commands you to do it, and you will spend an eternity in hellfire if you don't. That would be the point that Hitchens is making there.
I think Hedges has him to rights, though. I think he's exactly correct when he points out the fact that what Hitchens is doing, externalizing evil into the form of religion, is the same thing that religious people do, externalizing evil, in terms of Satan. And Hedges is just arguing that the evil is in all of us at all times. This is part of human nature. Blaming religion is the wrong approach in his view.
Yeah, certainly. I think. Well, what Hitchens would say, what I would say, is that the impulse is there regardless, but the context of religion makes it kind of infinitely worse. It takes something that's bad and makes it that much worse because it gives it a supernatural level of importance, whereas otherwise it would just be, any other ideology, any other thought process. Once you add eternal consequences, it makes things a lot more important, a lot more dire, a lot more stark.
Perhaps. So I have, I'm going to read Hedges' written statement about the Great Slap, see what Hedges has to say about that one. All right. We gaze upon a sea of faces with no regard for the human race and our place in it. Painted across the screen, we are greeted with smiles
and laughs and crying. A slight offense between sophisticated businessmen turns brutally violent with no warning. The human race watches rapt with horror and delight. They drink in the blood of anger and fear, seeking to only grasp that last fleeting emotion before it slips away once again. The condemnation that comes in response the next day will serve to boost the profits of the media companies who profit from the violence. At the end of the day, we will resume our tea party of smiles and respectability, all the while waiting for the true brutality of our nature to rise like a many-headed serpent and strike out again. It starts out like love, but it is death. Public slapping is the beautiful young nymph in the fairy tales that when kissed exhales the vapor of the underworld.
Thank you.
Dear Lord, what a beautiful, what a beautiful statement. How eloquent and how evocative.
Yeah, it sounded just like it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, if you are interested in nootropics, check out my website, metamaxperformance.com. We are getting ready to launch our spring sale. Will be any day now. Check it out, see what we have going on discount-wise. Get all your nootropic compounds there, if you don't mind. Support the show. MetaMaxPerformance.com.
ShowerHempFarms.com, your number one source for CBD and Delta 8 products. Come check us out. We are running a sale on the 1 mil vape carts. $15. $15. Can you believe that? That's so cheap, Tony. I know, isn't it? You should go check it out. Please do so. There will be voting in Kentucky about Delta 8 being illegal, so I may stop selling them soon. Or I may not. I don't care. Check it out. ShowerHempFarms.com.
Speaking of Kentucky, I don't have an intro for this segment, so let's get right into it here. Talking about the IKA, I had never heard of this.
Mm-hmm.
Apparently, there was a very popular neo-Nazi group in Kentucky. So this, most of this information is coming from the SPLC, the Southern Poverty Law Center. Nobody else has really documented all these, because what happens is these guys get sued and shut down, and they'll open up another chapter with a new name, with the same individuals, or many of the same individuals. I'm sure some of them stop being as openly Nazi. I doubt they change their ideology that quickly. Maybe they do. But this was founded in 1996 by Ron Edwards after he left the KKK. They were trying to reform their image, and I guess he had a problem with that. In the early 2000s, the IKA, Imperial Clans of America, was the largest neo-Nazi group active in the United States. It was started in Dawson Springs, Kentucky. This is about 20 minutes east of Kentucky Lake. So I've driven through here, actually, not by his property, but I've went out there to vacation before. It's very nice out there. Never would have thought, man. Never would have thought.
Yeah. So this story actually, it come about. I was started off as many bad conversations tend to, with me not being able to keep my mouth shut. I was over at my mom's listening to her and my aunt speak about certain racial issues. And I pointed out I was pointing out certain tendencies amongst conservatives to advocate policies that were not conducive to the flourishing of non-white peoples in the U.S., we'll say. And she pointed out to me that the Klan was traditionally made up of Democrats. I tried to point out to her, but I tried to explain, how the party switched and yada yada. This is a long time ago. That today, modern day today in modern day, that the Klan and these different neo-Nazi racist groups were much more closely aligned with conservatives and Democrats, and I started thinking about particular organizations that I knew of, and then I thought of the IKA. So there was this incident. They've got a lot of prominence around here. There was this one incident in Brandenburg. I don't know if you want to play the clip. This is like the mid 2000s, 2007, 2008.
Okay, Klansmen, line up, single file.
The ritual ceremony is considered sacred by the IKA.
We stand in this circle to illuminate the light of Christ's word. Keeper of the flame.
Will you accept this light and pass it on to another brother or sister?
I will.
In this footage rarely seen on television, the IKA allows...
That guy wasn't ready for the race war.
...annual spring cross-lighting.
Klansmen, halt! For Christ!
For Christ!
For race!
For race!
For the IKA!
For the IKA!
For the ceremony, a steel cross is wrapped in cloth, soaked in kerosene, then lit.
Do not turn
Okay.
Yeah, well, we get it.
Nazis
doing Nazi things. So they kind of got in the national headlight a bit. Is that the word? National spotlight. That's the word I'm looking for. National spotlight a bit through an incident at the Meade County Fair in 2007. There were two members of the IKA that seen a young fellow that they thought was Mexican. He was walking around with a young white girl, and they beat him up pretty brutally at the fair. Broke his jaw, broke some ribs, broke his hand, messed him up pretty bad, and we're shouting racial slurs the whole time. Turns out he was not Mexican; he was Native American. I think the boy was 16 at the time. His girlfriend was 15, and there ended up being a pretty large national trial that took place here in Meade County, which is right up the road from me. I remember when this was going on. So incidentally, I also happen to know some of these members. So a long time ago, this was back when I was a kid, my dad was in a band with the Grand Wizard of the Shepherdsville chapter. The guy's name was Rob Sheffield. And I was probably 10 or 11 at the time. I used to go up to his house all the time. There would be all these Klansmen that come over, along with Ron Edwards. I'd met Ron Edwards one time when I was a kid. But all these guys would come over. They would all sit around, get drunk, play music together in a garage. And I was kind of tangentially aware at the time of who these guys were and what they were about.
Interesting. That doesn't surprise me. I figured you would have some connection to these folks.
Yeah.
I have to feel like there's crossover with the bikers, dude. I have to.
Oh, yeah, a lot. Generally, when the bikers like break a leg and they can't ride their bike anymore, or they get too fat, then they just join the Klan. That's usually how it goes.
It's like the it's like the bench.
Yeah. This is you get on the bench, or if they get religion really bad. Of course, nowadays there's a lot of like uber religious bike. I don't know. I guess if you're a 1%er, if you're one of like the punk bikers that doesn't like to do drugs or commit crimes, then you just join one of those religious like Bikers for Jesus. If you're a 1%er, you join the Klan. That's how it works. It's science.
All right, where was I at here? I do want to go through some of this. This is fascinating to me. I don't know much about these people. I never even heard. I mean, I assumed there was Nazis out here or Klansmen or whatever you want to call them. And actually, there's a lot of infighting in these groups that we might get to some of. In 1998, the feds raided him for a potential bomb plot to blow up a government building. They never filed charges against Ron Edwards, though, in that case. In 1999, an FBI informant claimed Ron Edwards was involved in a plot to assassinate the head of the SPLC, Southern Poverty Law Center, Morris Dees, the same gentleman who later...
He sued the organization.
Yeah, he sued Ron Edwards, and he sued the IKA.
Yeah, they basically got sued out of existence.
Right, but this was
post.
Prior to that, there was an assassination plot to kill Morris Dees.
Yeah.
No charges were brought in that either. In 2000, the IKA started this Nordic Fest, which boasted 300 visitors on Ron Edwards' property out there in western Kentucky.
Mm-hmm.
This was a big racist rally with a bunch of like racist bands, I guess.
Yeah, it is a big genre of music, like the strictly racist music.
Why would you? Seems like you're limiting your audience.
Yes, you're definitely limiting. It's definitely limiting your audience. Did you watched American History X?
Oh yeah,
yeah. They featured like quite a bit of actual, I guess, racist bands. I don't know what you would call the genre really. Maybe like Nordic music. Yeah,
I don't know if Norway would like that usage, but
or the Nords from Skyrim, they probably take great umbrage. I don't know. They're pretty racist.
I have some clips. I don't know if this might get us kicked off of Twitch here. I tried to find the most congenial portions of this to play here, but
one of his quotes was, "If you're not being vilified by the Jewish press on a daily basis, then you're not doing enough as a white person to fight them." And what I think is really important to remember is that Adolf Hitler is vilified day after day after day, 60 years after his death. I think that really says something about that man.
What does that say about that man? What does it say about him? I mean, we'll be vilifying like Jeffrey Epstein in 60 years, I hope.
Yeah, I don't think it says much at all, other than that the guy is popularly perceived to be a villain.
Anyway.
I mean, that's what the word means, right?
This is what it's called. 18 was right.
I'm pretty familiar with Nazi stuff. I've done a lot of research on these guys. Do you know what he's saying here? 18 or 88 or like he says AG, which I don't understand. He's talking about Hitler, but why do you say AG? I don't get it. Do you know?
I don't know. No, I don't actually.
Oh.
Is that the audience? There are as many band members as there are audience members. This is exactly what I knew it was going to sound like.
Wait. What I want you to do, Tony, is name this dance. This one guy is doing this Heil Hitler dance.
Okay.
Let's see. It's going to show it again here in a sec. I love the dance, dude.
Oh.
He's saying AG or 18 or something like that. I don't know what he's saying here.
You see who I'm trying to think of the guy on the wall behind the drummer's head.
I swear to God, I've seen some of these guys before. They're like the guy earlier with the blonde beard who was real big.
Yeah, it looks like so many other people that live around here.
There he goes. He's doing the dance. Yeah, what do you call this dance right here? Look at this. He does this for like an hour.
I don't know. What would be? This is what we need Reddit for.
It looks like, for the audio listeners, he's doing the Running Man basically with a Heil Hitler every step. What do you call it? What do you call the salute thing? Nazi salute.
Sieg Heil.
Yeah, he's doing that constantly while he's doing like the Running Man basically.
Not very creative, these people. Yeah. So basically, back in reference to the conversation I was having with my aunt, I just wanted to kind of touch on a couple of the I guess main tenets of the IKA and see if we can find any overlap with one of the political parties in this country. Maybe not. I don't know. We'll see where this goes. All right. So number one, nationalism. The IKA is incredibly nationalistic. They believe in God and country. They believe in maintaining the purity of the nation. They believe in the superiority of America over the heathen nations that surround it. Blatant nationalism. They believe in the inherent superiority of the U.S. as an entity, and reject the notion that we are a nation like any other.
The IKA does?
Yes.
Where's this coming from?
This is coming from the Anti-Defamation League website.
Okay. I'm surprised by that. It seems like they would have a pan-white ideology.
Yeah, so there is a bit of acceptance of the kind of northern and central European countries, but in general, my understanding from what I was reading is that there is a kind of a chosen, that America was the chosen nation. This is where the chosen Aryans come to create this nation that would lead the white race into the future and assert our dominance over the lesser races. But anyways, this blatant nationalism, belief in the superiority of America. I don't know. It kind of coincides a lot with certainly a lot of Republican or a lot of conservative ideologies. There's of the two prominent political parties in this country, it certainly falls more in line with the conservative side of the spectrum than the liberal side of the spectrum.
So if the Nazis took over the White House, you're saying that one of the political parties would be on board and the other wouldn't?
Yes. That's
in general.
Just in general. Maybe just trying to get at that. Second, xenophobia. So there is a constant worry about an influx of non-white immigrants.
They're taking our jobs.
That's a good one. polluting our bloodline.
One of the ones from the video, one of these clips was the whites built this country, Tony.
Yeah. Oh, the 14 words. So the 14 words are, I guess, a prominent part of IKA ideology. The 14 words go, we must secure the existence of our people and a future for white children. This is them fighting back against an attack by immigrants and what they would call the slave people, which are the descendants of slaves, black people in this country.
I would add in here that they are also anti-abortion. This is all coming from, I watched several of these, whatchamacallums, fests, what are they called? Nazi
Nordic
Fest?
Fest.
Nordic Fest. I watched several of these on BitChute, and this is coming from speakers there. They're very anti-abortion because they're killing white babies. They're also anti, like, any sort of women's rights. Because for some reason, women having rights is anti-white families somehow.
Yeah. They would phrase it as being supportive of women's rights, but they are supporting the women's role to do the women's role, which is to, make the home and give birth to
many babies.
Give birth to many white babies.
Yes.
Lastly, also we have the ZOG, the Zionist Organized Government. I don't know if you've ever heard that term before.
Zionist Occupied Government, I believe.
Is it occupied? I've heard organized. Yeah, it could be both.
It's definitely real, by the way.
Okay, so when I hear ZOG, I also hear references to, in my mind, I correlate this with right-wing figures that will often reference the elites and cultural Marxism, and you hear these grand conspiracies about the Clinton Foundation and
postmodern neo-Marxism.
Klaus Schwab and his elites of liberals trying to pollute American culture and move in with these globalist ideals to take away the sovereignty of U.S. citizens. These are all the same talking points that you could find in any right-wing circle.
Well, yeah, this is scapegoating. They don't want to believe that white people are the ones oppressing them, so they have to pretend that it's Jews doing it. I guess Jews aren't fucking white people somehow. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know the rules on that one. These guys spend a lot more time thinking about it, so I'll just defer to their good judgment. And there's a lot of conspiratorial, almost kind of apocalyptic thinking having to do with these globalist forces. Stuff coming from the Anti-Defamation League. You'll hear reference to what's called the Day of the Rope. So this is basically a crystal knocked against white people where the ZOG, the globalist, will come in and they're going to do something. They're going to confiscate your guns. They're going to take over. They're going to institute these terrible policies, and they're going to start systematically killing white people. But you see a lot of the same in conservative circles, mainstream conservative circles. I'm not talking super far, but you hear the same type of language. You hear, certainly if you talk to like Second Amendment people, you'll hear about these Democrat plots that are going to come in. They're going to institute martial law. This is Glenn Beck's whole shtick for like 10 years. The globalists at the UN and Agenda 21, they're going to come. They're going to take our guns away. They're going to institute martial law, going to force us to use
you're talking about
incandescent light bulbs.
You're talking about white replacement, right? This is Tucker Carlson openly talks about this shit.
Yeah. Yeah, it all falls on it. It's the same thing by a different name, essentially. A lot of the main tenets of groups like the IKA are basically just hopped up conspiracies that are peddled by any Republican, or many Republicans. Certainly a good deal of mainstream conservative ideology in this country. And lastly, there's one more acronym for us. It's ACAB, which stands for All Cops Are Bastards, and they're right about that one. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Well, at least, we found a point of agreement. That's good.
Yeah. I Clan, they got that one nailed. 100%. We can clip that, put it up. I was trying to think of like, what some of the big differences were between,
Republicans
groups
and
like
Nazis.
Yeah, essentially. And I started thinking, because there is a lot of anti-government talk, which I think is kind of what gave you pause when I talked about how their nationalistic tendencies. And so what I initially kind of thought was like, well, these guys aren't as authoritarian, as bootlicking to authority figures as your average Republican or conservative. You know, they're not the cop lover, military lover, subservience to military structures in the U.S. You know, even like your average civilian, that conservative woman that just loves the military and thinks they're the greatest and thinks that all the presidents should be generals or whatever. I think they have that. They just feel like the structures that are in place now are just are tainted. But I think
they've been taken over by the Zog.
Yeah, they've been taken over by the Zog. But that tendency, I guess, is still there. That kind of rank authoritarianism and bootlicking.
I think they do have that anti-authoritarian sentiment, but I think they're being used by the power structures.
Yeah.
That's my opinion. We can talk more about that if you want, but
sure,
go ahead. So going into this, I was like, well, this isn't very many people. There seems to be like a few dozen people here or there. The largest one of these Nazi cons was like 300 people. It seems to be pretty widespread all across the country, though. Not a lot of people openly professing these ideologies, but they're just open about it. How many people aren't open about it because it's so distasteful? Here's the SPLC hate map, which is pretty cool. 9 hate groups currently in Kentucky. Not too bad. There's none out west here. See, this is where IKA was. And they even list like the black hate groups here. Tennessee, 28. See how many Virginia has. 20 in Virginia. So Tennessee has 28 hate groups. Jeez.
Well, what are the ones listed in Kentucky?
Let's see. 14 First, which is a statewide neo-Nazi group. Fellowship of God's Covenant People. Christian Identity Union.
Israel United in Christ. Patriot Front.
There's a bunch of these like religious sounding neo-Nazi groups now. Nation of Islam, that's a black one, I think.
Yeah, the Klan is certainly, it's always been explicitly Christian. So
Patriot Front, Proud Boys, Revolutionary Black Panther Party. So 2 black hate groups and the rest are white.
I'm kind of upset we don't have any Asian representation.
Yeah, I know.
You guys got to step it up.
They're too busy winning.
They are. Where are my Filipinos at? Not in Kentucky, that's why.
They're all in the Navy. Trust me. So the theory goes, the theory with a big capital T goes that as class consciousness rises, as it currently is, so will fascism, as it currently is. Fascism is capitalism responding to the threat of annihilation, sort of like a immune response. So the question from a Marxist lens is who's going to win, basically. Guess we'll find out.
That we will.
Another question, is the SPLC doing cancel culture here? Suing all these organizations for their political beliefs. Yeah.
Cancel culture strikes again.
They got Ron Edwards.
They got, it's getting out of control.
In the trial, during the trial in Meade County, he tattooed "fuck SPLC" on the side of his head. Came into court.
What a Giga Chad confirmed.
I didn't play the interview. There's an interview with him outside the courthouse. I don't know where he did the interview at, but Ron Edwards' statement, this is during the trial. Somebody catches him after he leaves the trial and interviews him and a few other people. So this is Ron Edwards here, the first one.
My name is Ron Edwards. I'm the Imperial Wizard of the Imperial Clans of America, IKA as we call it. We're in a lawsuit in Meade County, Kentucky, for an incident that happened in 2006. They're trying to sue me for something that the IKA or myself had nothing to do with. They're trying to hold me responsible. It's no different than somebody else who may be married, as one of the jurors put it, and if her husband shoots a guy, is she to be held responsible for what he does? I think not. It's no different than a Mason who belongs to the Masonic Lodge that goes out and does something without their knowledge, and should the lodge be sued? Or Catholic Church, Baptist Church, Protestant, whatever. However, we've been in court for 2 days, and I think tomorrow we'll sum it up. Hopefully the jury will be fair with this. And Morris Dees today, I believe that he had paid some people to try to lie. He has made confidential deals with some of the defendants that cannot be talked about. They've closed the medical records where they couldn't be seen. And a lot of the papers that I put up to submit into evidence Mr. Dees and all the lawyers, I think 4 or 5 or 6 of them they have there. They had them put where they got a gag order on, and the judge said I could use it in my appeal in a hearing earlier this month or last month. Anyway, I don't believe I'm getting a fair trial compared to a regular citizen. I'm basically being persecuted for my beliefs. All I want is a fair trial, just like any other person in the United States. So hopefully after this tomorrow, around tomorrow evening sometime, we'll be exonerated, and Morris Dees will have a little egg on his face.
My name's Jared.
See, I feel bad for him after that. He's being vilified. He's being targeted. Meanwhile, he's got a fresh tattoo on the side of his head that says, fuck SPLC, 2 years after he tried to kill Morris Dees.
Being targeted for his beliefs, poor guy. He was not being targeted for his beliefs, but
there is a legal argument about how much culpability he has, but it's pretty clear that he ordered this hit. He is a huge asshole. He's done terrible shit. I went through a lot of this, man. He's not great. Tell me who this next guy is. See if you can identify this individual. Who's that?
Oh,
Scott?
my goodness.
What are you doing?
Scott.
Come on, buddy. Or his brother.
This is before his brother's fat.
Oh.
This must have been before Scott transitioned.
Oh, yeah. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's the ongoing joke of this podcast that Scott's transitioning.
Oh, yeah. I forgot. I had some other questions here. Let's see. So should punishment be harsher for hate crimes than for regular crimes?
It can be significantly harsher too, right? Like
they're federal charges, I think.
It's a federal aggravator, like addendum to a normal state felony. I don't know, man. I really don't think so. I guess the idea behind it is that you're trying to fight. It's almost like you're fighting back against the ideology,
right?
By punishing these certain individuals. Aside from seeming to me to really step over the bounds of infringing on the individual's rights, I just don't know how effective that is. I don't know if anybody that's committing a hate crime or is not committing a hate crime is doing so because someone else got this enhanced charge. If you're going to infringe on, certainly you shouldn't be infringing on anyone's rights, whether they're a despicable human being or not. If you are, you better make sure. I would hope that it would be effective, that what you're doing. And I just don't think that it is. I don't think it's going through the minds of people when they commit these crimes that they're going to get some sort of enhanced charge out of it.
They must be going by the whole punitive justice thing, trying to punish them, the hate crime, as opposed to preventative action.
Yeah, it's kind of odd. So the two guys in the Brandenburg case, I think they got 3 years each, which seems like what you would have gotten just for the attack. Even though it was pretty apparent it was a hate crime, and I guess was tried as a hate crime. So I don't know if that enhanced their sentence. I guess if it was federal, then they wouldn't have been eligible for parole after, was it
85%?
Yeah, you have to do the 85% federal time.
Next question. Didn't we try this whole white supremacy thing and white people voted against it? Not even like all white people, just white men. And also, didn't Lincoln win the electoral vote on top of that? Like, it wasn't even close. It was a landslide against white supremacy.
Yes. But see, James, you're thinking like a collectivist. America is about individualism, rugged individualism of the white nation as we carry on into the future. Next question.
That's it. That's all the questions. I do have a closing clip here from the great Chris Hedges, post-cancellation Chris Hedges. You just say, how dare you go after fucking Chris Hedges?
Jesus. Incidentally, though, I'll just kind of give a little brief. Like I said, I've met these guys. I have a friend that was tangentially knew, or I guess was buddies with one of the guys, not the one we seen, but the other guy that was guilty of the attack here in Meade County. These guys are all morons. I think there are certain people that kind of aggrandize and glorify members of these different organizations. You know, you certainly see it with bikers, Sons of Anarchy, and they're these cool badasses that are out there doing their own thing. I know these people. They are not cool badasses. They are all idiots to a man.
Yeah, I watched a lot of these. I told you I watched a bunch of these speakers. Like they have the speakers come up and speak.
They're horrible. Like I said, I knew Rob Sheffield, who was the Shepherdsville Grand Wizard. I still know his daughter to this day. She's a very nice person. Played with her as a kid. I met Ron Edwards. My dad at the time did not like him. Thought he was kind of an idiot.
His son is prominent too. He was the head of another hate group.
Yeah, but there tends to be this probably not so much of the Klan, but certain of these groups they're kind of built up in certain ways to be maybe not badasses to a certain degree, with flawed ideologies, and they're just not. Most of them are pussies. They're all rats. They're obviously, you can see Ron doesn't even have any teeth. He's, I don't know.
I don't hold that against him, but
it's in conjunction with everything else. I'm going to hold it against him.
There's so many stories from these guys about all the infighting, even at this Nazi con. There was other hate groups showing up, like firing pistols in the air. The reason that they had 300 members, and then the following year they only had 60 people show up because all the bands pulled out because Ron Edwards is such an asshole to the bands, apparently. There was this other group of skinheads that didn't like him, and so they beat the shit out of him and almost started a freaking massacre. There's all these stories. They can't even get along. They're worse than the left.
When it
comes to unity.
Almost worse than the left.
Almost.
Yeah, they're just dumb, angry, disenfranchised people for the most part, and they just don't know where to direct their anger, so they direct it just everywhere. Black people, one another.
Yeah, that might be. That's kind of what Chris Hedges talks about a lot of the times, because he went in and did reporting on these guys. I don't know if you heard him tell the story before, but he tells a story. He went to the 3 Percenters, the Proud Boys, and all these different neo-Nazi groups, and he said he was just praying that they didn't Google his name because he was undercover.
Yeah.
The U.S. isn't the only country where we're seeing this far-right rise. Obviously, this is happening in Europe and beyond. How is what we're witnessing here connected to elsewhere in the world?
Well, it's the result of neoliberal economics, where you destroy public institutions. I mean, whatever you say about communism, when I was there in Eastern Europe, they had a first-class educational system, which people did not pay for. Everyone had health insurance. There was full employment. And so neoliberalism went in and destroyed, in the name of the free market, which everyone confused with freedom, all of those institutions. Huge state enterprises closed, massive unemployment. I was just in Poland. 2 million young Poles work as baristas in Spain or somewhere. And you created a new oligarchic class by selling off state assets. This happened, of course, as well as Russia. And people, finally woke up and realized they were being had. And they were being had by that quote-unquote liberal establishment in the same way that we've been had by these liberal elites on the East Coast and the West Coast. And we've seen the rise of proto-fascist movements in Hungary and Poland. We're seeing powerful proto-fascist movements in France, even Germany. And it all goes back to this idea that human society and human life should be ruled by the dictates of the global marketplace. It's an insane ideology. It's never worked anywhere in human history. But until we break the back of corporate power, we're not going to blunt the rise of these movements.
What a legend.
Well said.
Just pointing out there that, they complain about the liberals and they're right. They're right. They just don't really understand the whole picture. They don't have the big picture, right?
That's what it is. They're feeling the pain that we're all feeling, and they're upset about it. They're incredibly angry about it, and they just don't know where to direct it. They don't know where it's coming from. They just
tune into Tucker, and he'll tell you where to direct your anger, guys.
Oh, they do. They certainly do.
That's the show. That's all I got. We learned a lot. Cool. We laughed a lot. We got to see Abby Martin.
Oh, always love seeing her. And most importantly, we discussed the Great Slap.
Of course.
We had to see where we all stood on that. Anyways, I'll talk to you next week, James. Peace.
Later, man. Have a good one.
Later.